Welcome to Cultivated Live for Tuesday, August 5th, 2025. I am Jay Rosenthal. I'm here with my co-founder and our editor-in-chief, Jeremy Burke, and we'll get to our guest in 1 second. But each day we provide the cannabis industry the most important, insightful, and useful information through our daily newsletter, through this daily live stream. So find us on LinkedIn and YouTube. And for more details about everything we do, visit cultivated.news. And today, Jeremy and I are joined by Ashley Southall, reporter from the New York Times. Jeremy? Well, first of all, Ashley, welcome and thank you for being here. And now, Jeremy, over to you.
Thank you, Jay. So today we're digging into the latest twist in New York's tumultuous cannabis rollout. Readers of this newsletter will know what I'm talking about. But just to back up for a second, this issue came about really in a surprise announcement last week, just as the state was finally starting to get a critical mass of stores open and people were becoming optimistic about the New York cannabis market for the first time. Regulators dropped the bomb. They said over 100 businesses must move because they're too close to schools under the previous interpretation of the proximity rules. So what's behind this change? What happens next? And what does this mean for the future of the New York cannabis industry? To break it down, we're joined by Ashley, who we're really excited to have on the show. Ashley covers the twists and turns of the New York cannabis market since the rollout and just published a big new story, which we'll link in the show notes. So welcome, Ashley. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Jeremy and Jay.
So just to start off, Ashley, what exactly is this change all about? How was it announced and who does it affect? Can you set the stage for us, maybe for people who aren't following this as closely as many of us?
Mm-hmm. So this change is about how New York regulators measure the distance between a potential dispensary and a school. Previously, the regulators in New York used an extrapolation from the liquor law to influence their measurement, including going from entrance to entrance. In this announcement, the state is saying that was improper and inconsistent with the cannabis law, and the decision needs to be made from the entrance of the dispensary to the property line of the door. If you know anything about schools, they often not only have buildings, some of which they may not even be in use as classrooms, but they also have playgrounds, parks, and other ancillary features that significantly narrows the distance between it and a potential dispensary.
So Ashley, I want to really understand the impacts on people in the industry, right? Operators of dispensaries, everyone involved in the New York cannabis industry. In the story, in your most recent story, you were following Nubia Ashley. She's a prospective cannabis entrepreneur. She ran a daycare prior to getting in the cannabis industry, a heavily regulated industry. She qualified for a license through the state's social equity program because of her husband's cannabis possession conviction, and she got her license about 2 years ago. So, in our view, she's exactly who the social equity program was supposed to help. Can you walk us through all the challenges she went to get here and where things stand now following this announcement from the Office of Cannabis Management?
Yeah, sure. First, I want to say that the way that the OCM, the Office of Cannabis Management, was measuring the school's distance, the reason that they took sort of a more liberal approach was because they were concerned that in places like New York City, where it's very densely populated, that there would not be enough dispensaries to meet the demand. And Nubia got her license in July 2023, right in between two injunctions, right? There was a lawsuit on this Versailles where a gentleman from out of state thought he should qualify for a license. He did not, because his conviction was not in New York State. And then she got her license, and then right after that, there was a court injunction in a lawsuit brought by veterans who felt like who pointed out that the law requires that all the applications open to everyone at the same time, so they could not reserve these applications for just people who are just as involved and have successful businesses. So when that injunction comes, it goes on for about 3 to 4 months, and Nubia in that process has a location that she has to give up. She cannot afford to hold on to a location for several months without a decision from the Office of Cannabis Management. But also landlords are pressuring people to sign these leases so that they can begin taking in rents, because mortgages don't wait for injunctions, right? There are two more locations that she goes through in which she is either by some rule change or the way the rule is applied, she gets bounced out of. One of them was a person in front of her in line did not have a location, but was allowed to choose a new location. It happened to be right across the street from the location that she wanted. So she got bounced out of that. Now she's on her fourth attempt. She's gotten a store. It's a formerly unlicensed dispensary. It's in Manhattan, where her license was originally awarded, because if you recall, when New York first started handing out dispensary licenses, they were done by region. And so she gets a license. So she's fully built out this store, and she's just waiting for the OCM to call her up on Zoom, check out the space, and give her the okay, and send her the sticker that says that she's a legal licensed dispensary in New York. And then she can begin ordering product, hiring employees, and most importantly, making sales that are going to sustain her business. But instead of getting that, she got this email that says that pretty unequivocally that she has to move.
Right. Jay, I saw your mouth moving. So, yeah.
I want to get back to something you said, because the interpretation was following the alcohol regulations, right? Mm-hmm. And in your story, you quote some people who wrote the actual law in New York, saying that the interpretation was correct the way the OCM was doing it. So where does this breakdown and the timeline seem to come from? Like it does seem to come out of nowhere, and I think it was even on a Friday. Like it seems to come out of nowhere that they got these letters, and anybody involved in the process up to now thinks that they were doing the right thing, including the people that had actually written the law. Mm-hmm. So where does this new interpretation come from?
I think that's the $1 million question. I think a lot of people want to know what's changed and why now. I started hearing about this about a week before I received Felicia Reed's email, and these letters went out to applicants. There was a board meeting that Friday where I was told that it was supposed to come up. It did not come up at that meeting. And so on Monday, I'm getting lots of calls about it. And then I start to get the email from several sources. And then some of the applicants themselves started to get emails. As you know, I started tweeting about it, and I said that the OCM was forcing these licensees to move. They very quickly countered that this was not the case. But for someone like Nubia, the only way that she can stay in place is to continue paying $15,000 a month for a space that she can't make any sales on. And the state is not offering support for people like her.
I want to just pick up on.
I will say that the people who wrote the law are very confused. You know, they were not told about this in advance. Neither was the Attorney General's office. The governor's office sort of came out with this on the same day that they were telling these people, and so they're not sure that there is actually a mistake in the way that the OCM interpreted the regulations and how to measure the distance between a dispensary and a school. But what they do acknowledge is that now they really do have a problem, because the state has come out and deemed these applicants and licensees non-compliant, and that poses very real challenges for them.
Right. Ashley, I want to pick up on Nubia's story just quickly again. You know, as we're sort of prepping this, you talked about her time running a daycare. This is, you know, a heavily regulated space as well. It's a challenging business to prop up. You know, Nubia is relatively sophisticated. Like, how much longer does she really want to spend that $15K a month, you know, to get in this industry? Like, she has other things she could be doing with her time. And so it seems to me like all this rigmarole might be pushing talented people out of the space. Like, what is her mindset? How much longer do you think she wants to spend to get this thing open?
I think she's assessing what her resources are and how much patience she can pull out of the barrel, because she's had to have a lot in this process. It's been at least 3 years for these people, and it's been a lot of rough and tumble, lots of rule changes, policy making, and things that they've had to adjust to. The OCM likes to use the metaphor that they were building the plane as they were flying it. And these people have been on board the entire time. And you know, some of them, including the couple at the end of my story, Fernando Pena and Suzanne Faberter, are just, you know, they're just sick of it. There's a lot of uncertainty, and this was a fresh injection of that. And they, in their view, they're tired of living this way. Are there other things that she could do? Possibly, but this was a dream. This was something that a lot of people really wanted to do. And so I think that she's considering, you know, how long is it feasible for her to hold on?
Right. And this is sort of a nuanced point, sort of pegging off her story. One thing we discussed again is that how the state keeps calling people like Nubia applicants, right? And that has a certain connotation where maybe they just paid a fee and sent in a piece of paper and are waiting for a response. But no, like she has real estate, she's paying all this money out of pocket. While these applicants are so deep into, getting real estate, into opening their business, what's the disconnect? Like, I think when people sort of parachute into the story, they don't really understand that these people are actually trying to run their businesses and they're not just waiting for a rubber stamp on a piece of paper.
Yeah. Opening a dispensary is not like opening a liquor store where you can file some paperwork, get an approval, pay a fee, and go out and go forth and pursue your dream, if that's your dream. With a dispensary, you apply for a license. In her case, her license was approved by the board because of the program that she is a part of, but she needed final approval. But that requires getting a location, signing leases. There were people who bought buildings. There were people who were in contract negotiations to purchase buildings who don't know what to do at this point. And so that's more than a paperwork process, right? And in some ways, the state, it's clear from their response that they had not thought this through because, again, there's no financial relief for Nubia if she wants to stay. It's only she's only eligible for the state's grants if she chooses to move, but she's already invested a lot in the space, and it will cost her. The $250,000 that they're offering is barely enough to cut her lease. These are multi-year leases that people have signed. It's like imagine unwinding a mortgage. A lot of these mortgages or leases are backed by personal guarantees, meaning people put up their homes or their personal property for these leases and mortgages. And so it isn't just pick up your furniture and move and put a new address on things. It's way more complicated. Even for those who are deemed licensees, even for the licensees who are actually called licensees in this process, some of them are coming up for renewals and their licenses will not be valid. They will be sort of under review. So how is a bank or an insurer going to respond to that? We don't know yet. Someone brought up that there was a similar situation with the cultivators who were part of the conditional program that jump-started the cannabis program. But in that case, the state had not declared them non-compliant. In this instance, the state is openly saying that you are a non-compliant business in a business where compliance is everything. It affects your ability to buy products. It affects your ability to hold leases, to go to the bank and make a deposit. I mean, very simple things are affected by your status with the agency.
Yeah. It actually, I hadn't thought of this because your stories adequately or actually, rightly point out that this is affecting people in real life, whether they are open or not, they're getting these things. But also if you were a would-be applicant on the sidelines saying, this is my dream, I didn't go in the first round, but I'm doing it now. Why would you ever apply having read all of your stories, Ashley? Or if I was a landlord, why would I ever want to lease to a small entrepreneur who needs the lease to get licensed? But once they're licensed, the state could say, we're going to take it away or make you move. Like there's a chilling effect go forward as well on applicants, landlords, banks, insurers, like everybody. It's just uncertain. And what most people want is certainty, right? It's just a real chilling effect. I don't know if you've heard that, but it seemed to me if I was wanting to go into business in New York, that would be my biggest concern right now.
I mean, a lot of landlords are skittish about cannabis retailers in the first place. In the beginning, there was a lot of confusion about the unlicensed retailers versus the licensed retailers, and that had a real chilling effect on landlords who's like, first of all, it's something that's been restricted or criminalized for nearly a century. So there's that education that has to happen. Then you come in and you talk to the landlord, and it's extra risk for them as well, because these are in many instances cash businesses but they may do like debit payments. And so there's that risk of, crime that they're concerned about, although it hasn't necessarily materialized in New York City with regard to licensed dispensaries. And it's still federally legal. So there's already a mountain of hurdles that these licensees have to get over. So having the agency that is supposed to protect them and that licenses them to come out and make what in nearly everyone's view is a harmful declaration that these businesses are non-compliant. I mean, I I have landlords who are calling me and saying, that the state is harming these licensees. I mean, the landlord cares. And so there is real harm. And, Osberger Jr., who owns a cannabis place in Middle Village, Queens, he talked about, not only these banking issues, but he had an investor meeting and they canceled it after the state's announcement. And so I think that people are starting to see the consequences of this. And I think that in the state, it's clear from the state's explanation of this that there were certain things that they hadn't built into their holding response.
Yeah. And so, cannabis isn't just an emerging market with all the skittishness, of the sort of one step removed from actually selling the product. The banks, the insurers, the landlords, mortgage lenders. It's also federally legal, right? And so what does it mean for that, the lifeblood of the industry, for all these banking relationships, insurance relationships, real estate, when, A, it's federally legal, and B, the way it's regulated in New York is, turmoil. I think I can say that. How does that leave them thinking about the industry, and how much more difficult does that make the job of these prospective entrepreneurs who are trying to cobble together these relationships with whoever will work with them?
Mm-hmm. I think this is just part of a broader setback for the cannabis industry. Last year we were all looking at the rescheduling process and thinking that finally there was going to be some federal relief, or there was at least possible. And we very quickly saw that shift, and now that process is in a limbo. And it may have to start all over again. We don't know. We just don't know where it is. And I think that is the general tenor of the industry right now. You have several markets that are contracting: California, Massachusetts, the supply chain. And so I do think that people who are like the ancillary partners, there's just still a lot of uncertainty. It's still a very young industry. It's only the adult use industry is only about 10 or 12 years old. And so there's a lot of growth that still has to happen in the space. And, doing that while contending with federal illegality and regulators who don't have a federal model to go on. I think that's one of the appreciated aspects of cannabis in the general populace, that other agencies like agriculture or liquor, they have federal models to work off of. You can apply this to lab testing, for instance, with food safety. The states have something to copy and to adapt, and everyone's working sort of on the same program. Here you have nothing, and everyone is making it up from scratch based on their own ambitions and their own goals. And in New York, they set a very big goal to start repairing some of the wrongs of the war on drugs, including the disproportionate arrest of Black and brown people in New York City. And unfortunately, this decision that the OCM is making is having the opposite effect on those very same people.
Yeah. And Ashley, while we were prepping, you told me that some of the lawmakers who wrote the original MRTA, the bill that legalized cannabis in New York, have said that following the repeal of liquor prohibition, it took about a decade to get the liquor industry, alcohol industry, into a stable place. Is that the timeline that your reporting bears out, that we're working with cannabis, or is there some way that we can learn from history and expedite things a little bit?
Listen, I would love to be reporting on cannabis for 10 years. It's very rare that a reporter keeps a beat that long. I'm not if I was a critic, it'd be a different story. And maybe the Times will say, a weed critic might be a good idea. I don't know. But I do think, it's hard to prognosticate, and I certainly don't have an 8-ball about where this is going to go for cannabis. We're in a very unusual situation, which is why I wanted to cover this in the first place. It's just a once in a lifetime thing, and you have no idea how it's going to go. There's still lots of energy, lots of optimism, lots of blood, sweat, and tears, as Nubia called her effort to get into to open this dispensary, that are going into this industry. A lot of true believers from just people I would not have imagined, or I could not have made up in my dream, and that's worth covering for the WOW.
Yeah.
You've talked in your reporting to legislators who wrote the original bill. Like, is there hope that there will be a legislative fix to this particular issue, even though there's lots of other issues too? Like, or is it? It just seems that New York can be very slow in addressing some of these things once the ball starts rolling. Like, is there hope in Albany that something will change to address this very specific thing to help the owners and operators that you've talked to, or is it a bit like sort of out of our hands?
I think there's hope, but more importantly, there's pressure. If the state does not fix this situation, they could be on the hook for billions of dollars in damages compared to the $50 million that they're offering these people to move. So there's a very big chunk of change that's on the line for the state when they're also fighting to fill goals in the budget that resulted from the Trump administration's cuts. So they already have really deep financial gaps to sort of, stitch together and fill with money from somewhere. There are going to have to be some sacrifices made. And so the last thing you want is another liability. And on top of that, they also just want to get it right. I mean, there's lots of cynicism about why the governor, why this was allowed to happen, and whether the governor's reelection ambitions played a role in it. But she's the governor. Like, she knows that if this goes poorly, even though she had no hand in writing the law, passing the law, she just helped the program move along when she started. But her office has overseen this entire rollout from the beginning, and that's a part of her record, whether she chose it or not. And it's something that the right is already coming for her about. There were lots of Republicans who were talking about the schools issue, the dispensary in schools issue, without nuance. Obviously, some unlicensed dispensaries are still too close to schools and still operating, period. But I think there is resolve to get this done because the stakes of not getting it done are much higher. Not only the financial stakes, but the real setback to the goals and intentions of the cannabis law.
Well, we're coming up on time. I mean, Ashley, we could talk for a long time, so we'll have to have you back. But thanks for helping us make sense of this chaotic moment in New York cannabis. And New York is my home state, and so obviously I have a keen interest.
Yeah.
And hopefully we can be a little bit more optimistic the next time we have this conversation. But we appreciate it, Ashley. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ashley. And Jeremy, you just said this chaotic moment as opposed to the other ones in the past or the ones that are forthcoming. But thank you, Ashley, for your time today. Thank you, Jeremy, for being here. We'll connect with everybody tomorrow on Cultivated Live. Be sure to follow us on cultivated.news. Subscribe to our daily newsletter. Ashley and Jeremy, thanks so much. We'll see everybody soon.
All right. Thank you.